Okay, here is the last practice for the quiz tomorrow. I decided to do the last practice instead of going over the bottom half of the front page of the quiz review because it has two problems here that I can do for you. I do want to point out for the quiz review on piecewise functions that I did make a mistake in number 8. I accidentally put my x is the numerator, my y is in the denominator, and here is the correct version. Also, that was second period, I think. Fifth period, number 10, it should have been a positive 3/4, and that would give us 3/4 x minus 7. Because 2 minus the -1 is a positive 3, and 12 minus 8 is a positive 4. Okay, very easy to get the positive and negatives mixed up. But I will do a problem like 5 through 7 and a problem like 8 through 10 on the last practice. So here we are at number 1. And I'm not going to go into this one too deeply because I've already done a ton of problems like this. And basically you just look at the graph, x equals, this means x equals -4. What does f of -4 mean? Equal on the graph. So -4, it would equal -1. So number 1 is -1. Number 2, -3 is 0, -1 is 2, 0 is 3, 1 is 4, and f of 4 is 0. So number 2. And of course, you can pause the video at any time. It wants us to evaluate the piecewise function algebraically. And this is where we look at what x equals, and here x equals -8. So is -8 between -10 and 6, or is -8 greater than 6? Well, it's not greater than 6, it is actually between -10 and 6. So I would use the equation -5x plus 3. And I would plug my -8 in for x. See if I can make this a little less blurry. No, I won't. Okay, so if I plug that in, these are just arrows, meaning I'm going to the next step. I'm plugging it in. So that would give me -5 times -8 plus 3. And that would give me a positive 43, because -5 and -8 is 40, plus 3 is 43. My next one is 10, and in this case 10 is greater than 6. It's not between -10 and 6, it is greater than 6. So I would plug it into 4x squared. So I'm going to write 4x squared down here and show that I'm going to plug my 10 in. It looks like it's pointing at the 2. I really want to substitute it for the x. So this would give me 4, x equals 10, so that'd be 10 squared, and that ends up equaling 400, because 10 times 10 is 100, times 4 is 400. Do not go 44 times 10 is 40 and square that. You got to use your order of operations, parentheses and exponents first. Okay, now for the part that just a few of you were confused with or didn't know how I did it, because I did go through them quickly in some of my classes. I just want to remind you that last week we did do this worksheet, linear equations review. The whole front side of it has example problems, and I did send that through live grades as well. So look in your notes from last Monday. I think that'd be the 7th I sent them, or the 8th. One of those two. Actually, probably the 8th, most likely. Okay, so we have our slope through a point, -6,2. This is point and a slope, so I'm going to put it in point slope formula. It gives me this one up here, but I like to move my y over to this side and give me y equals m times x minus x1 plus y1. So all I'm doing is plugging slope in for m, so that would give me y equals -5 times x minus, and oh, do I have a color that I could use? Probably not. I used to have an orange pen. I'm not seeing it. Oh well, I'll stick with the points. So I have -6 is my x, so a negative and a negative make a positive, so I'm going to change this to +6, okay, and then plus, I have a +2 plus 2, and that is my point slope form. But it wants point slope and slope intercept. To get slope intercept, I multiply the 5 through and add my two numbers. So I'm going to put a star by this one. This is the one for point slope. I'm going to label it here, point slope. Let me move this over just a tad. Hopefully, let me check to make sure it's all in the video. Yes, it is. And so if I simplify it to get slope intercept. So multiplying the 5 through, I get -5x. -5 times 6 is -30, and bring down my 2 plus 2. So y would equal -5x minus 28, and this is slope intercept form, okay? And I'm going to put a little star by it. These are the two answers for number 3. Number 4, I noticed they do not give me my slope. So I need to find the slope and then do the exact same steps that I did for number 3. And I'm not going to go into as deep of detail for this one. But remember, we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that is slope. Slope equals these numbers. So that equals, if this is x1, y1, x2, y2, now I can just plug in my points. So I'll have 10 minus 5 over 8 minus -2, which turns into 8 plus 2. Remember, 8 minus a -2. Two negatives make a positive. So this gives me 5/10, which equals 1/2. So my slope m equals 1/2. Next, I'm going to plug in my 1/2, and I'm going to pick my first set of points. I always like to go with the first set. Second set's probably easier. Either set that you use for point slope, when you simplify them, you will get the slope intercept form for either one. So let's see, I have y equals my slope, which is 1/2, times x plus 2, because remember, negative and negative make a positive. I have minus x1 up here, so that's a minus and a minus, making a positive, and then plus 5. There's my point slope form, and if I were to simplify it, I would get y equals 1/2 x. 1/2 of 2 is 1, 1 plus 5 is 6, so plus 6. So this one's point slope, this one's slope intercept. Now for the last two problems. Number 5 wants our domain and our range. Now I already did this on the other one. It's coming from -infinity going along the x-axis. It includes, this one's actually the closed circle. It's hard to see, but this one's the open circle. But it is a function. So this is -infinity to infinity for the first one. And then you could also look at it as it starts here at -2, so none of this stuff below -2 is part of the graph. So it really starts at -2, And I would put a parenthesis on the outside because of the open circle. It doesn't touch -2, it just starts from -2. And then it goes and includes every point on the graph going to infinity. So we didn't even need this one, this line. So there is our domain and range. In the other video, I did the 3 problems on the other worksheet. So if you need more practice with that, go look at that video. And then our last one, write a piecewise equation from the graphs. So here I have 3 of them, 3 lines. So I have f of x, oops, put one too many x's. F of x equals, I'm going to make room for all 3 equations. And this one, basically x is less than 1. So I'm going to put if x is less than 1. And this is part of our domain. Anytime we're working with the x's. So even for the problem 5 that I did, looking at the domain, again, I was looking at the x-axis. Doing the same thing for doing your constrictions. And a lot of you are doing great with the constrictions or rules. So this first line goes to 1. It includes 1 because of the dot. I could have this line include the dot. It really doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and let this first one include the dot. The second line I won't include the dots. And then the third line, I'll make it include the dot. And what I mean by including the dot is only one of these 2 lines can share this point. So one would be an open circle. Problem is, with printing, you can't show which one it is. And that's another reason why we have to have these rules. That way we know which point goes with which line. So this one has a slope of +1. And I'm not going to write the one with the one before the x. And then it has a y-intercept of +3. So there's our first equation. Our second equation is a little bit more difficult, mainly because the slope is so big. Well, in this case, we have a range of a domain of 1 to 2 for this line. So x is greater than 1 and less than 2. And I need to figure out what this equation is. Well, I know it's negative because of the slope going down. And it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the right one. So it's -6. Now, 2 things you could do. I know it's 6, so I could go 4 plus 6. That's 10. So I'd have -6x plus 10, and I'd be done. But some of you probably don't understand what I just did. I just know from here, I'm at the 4, and then if I go left 1 and up 6, I would hit it 10. If you're not comfortable doing that, in this case, I would recommend taking this point, and just like number 4, find, or actually just pick one of the points. I'm sorry, pick one of the points, put it in point slope form. So if I have -1/6, I'd have y equals -1/6. Yeah, or no, 6 over 1, -6. I am so sorry. Let me fix that. Yeah, because it's rise over run, down 6 over 1. So it'd be 6x times x, -6. Okay, I'm going to get this right. And then pick a point. I'll pick 1, 4. How about 1, 4 is our point? Okay, so -1 plus 4. And then all I would have to do is simplify that. So that would give me -6x plus 6, bring down my 4, plus 4, and then I get -6x plus 10. So if you can't estimate what the y-intercept is for this number 10, you can pick a point, plug in the slope for point slope form, and you would get your equation. And then we have this last one. We have a positive slope of 1, so it would be x, And again, I could do the point slip form to get it, or I could just go backwards. It would hit -4, so this would be x minus 4, and this is if x is greater than or equal to 2. And since I didn't make this one equal to 2, this one must equal 2. So looking through, I'm going to double check. This one equals 1, so this one can't. Good. This one doesn't equal 2, so this one does. So yeah, everything has an equal sign. Each number that needs one has the equal sign. And if you can do all these problems on this page, you should be just fine for the quiz. If not, I highly recommend, even if you've done it, practice it one more time, especially number 6. In fact, you could practice using problems from the quiz review, numbers 1 and 2. They're a little more difficult because they have parabolas, but if you remember that a parabola, use the vertex form of a parabola, you should be able to get it. Okay, good luck.